Hi there. I'm David Culver, Vice President of U.S. Government Relations at Canopy Growth, once again joining you from Washington, D.C. Welcome back to Under the Canopy. This week, I'm pleased to be joined by Evelyn LaChapelle. Evelyn is a business owner, entrepreneur, and board member at one of Canopy Growth's cherished partner organizations and collaborators, the Last Prisoner Project. Evelyn grew up in Oakland, California, where she earned her bachelor's degree in business administration from Loyola Marymount University. Soon after finishing her degree, Evelyn, like hundreds of thousands of Americans each year, became a victim of the war on drugs. I'm honored to sit down with Evelyn today to discuss her journey and the ways in which legislation like the MORE Act, which would decriminalize and eliminate penalties for those who manufacture, distribute, and possess marijuana, could positively impact all who have been needlessly hurt by America's drug war. Please enjoy the discussion, and as always, thank you for joining me under the canopy. Hi, Evelyn. It's so great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us under the canopy. This is episode 5 for all of our folks that are watching. We had the chance to meet through our mutual friends at the Last Prisoner Project, and I'm really, really grateful to you for your time today. Before we jump right in, let me ask you how you and your family are doing.
We're doing great, David. Thank you so much for having me on. We're surviving. It was pandemic, there's social unrest, and now the West Coast is on fire. And so it's been a lot to maintain, but we are maintaining. Thank you.
Good. And you are on the West Coast?
Yes, I'm in California. So last Wednesday, we woke up to orange skies. Yes.
Yeah, we've been watching the coverage here from the East Coast, and it's absolutely horrible. So I hope you and your family are being safe, not only from the pandemic, but also from the wildfires. It's been tough to watch.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, we have so much ground to cover, and there's so many things that I want to talk to you about. But I would like to start, if we could, with your personal story first. There's so much to it, and I would really like for you to share as much as you're comfortable with the viewers. I've read a lot about you, and you spent 87 months in prison for a cannabis-related offense, which is something that's just mind-blowing to me. But I'm just wondering if you could go ahead and get us started and tell us a little bit about what happened prior to the arrest, and then your time that you were in prison.
Absolutely. I'll give you the short version because 87 months, we could talk about that forever. And so the shorter version is in 2009, I allowed the profits of cannabis sales to be deposited into my bank account. And I allowed that for 9 months. Moved on with life and graduated from Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles with my degree in business admin with the emphasis in entrepreneurship. Got married and had a child. And so 2012, I relocate from Los Angeles back to Oakland, where I'm from. And I'm at my mom's house, and I'm stopped by a sheriff, and they inform me that I have a warrant out for my arrest. And so from the deposits from 2009. And so I go to trial, I fight it in court. It's out of North Carolina. And in 2013, I'm found guilty by a jury that's not quite my peers. And I am convicted on a conspiracy case to distribute with the intent to sell marijuana, which is a Schedule I substance. And so you are convicted as if it was heroin or meth or crack cocaine. And I'm convicted to 87 months as a first-time non-violent first-time offender. And I spend 5 years of those 7 years in custody. I am released early for good behavior because I'm a stand-up citizen. And then I'm released February 2019. So I'm going on a 2-year anniversary of freedom in this upcoming February.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's an incredible story. And oddly enough, February of 2019 is the month that I started in the cannabis industry with Canopy Growth. So
Wow.
a very important date for me, but a much more important one for you.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, once you were released, what was it like in terms of your reentry into your community, both personally and professionally? How did that go?
Absolutely. And I've said this before, re-entry I thought was going to be the easiest part, like just get me out of prison, and re-entry and back into my regular life would be an extremely easy transition. And I found that it wasn't. So I was released in February 11th. I was hired on and onboarded at a pretty prominent hotel in San Francisco, doing exactly what I was doing prior to my incarceration, the sales and catering coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So I was extremely excited to just get back to work, put all of this behind me as if it never happened. And 2 months into the job, HR called me in because a coworker had Googled my name. And the simple Google search, an ICE article came up about my conviction, and I was asked to pack my belongings and leave that day. And that's when I realized that if reentry was hard for me, I can't imagine what it's like for the other inmate friends that are coming out behind me, right? I had a decent resume, college education, tons of family support, and here I was being asked to pack my belongings and leave because someone had Googled my name. And that's really, we haven't got there yet, but that's what introduced me to Last Prisoner Project and really honing in on what reentry is like for inmates returning to society.
Yeah. So just adding on to that question, who was there for you during this time to kind of help get you through this? Because I can't even imagine the emotional toll that this must have taken on you personally. You just finished 5 years in prison and you come out and you're ready to put your degree to work, and you're not able to do it. So who was there for you to help you get through this?
I have my mother who is extremely, extremely supportive, and aunts and sisters. And so I have a really good, strong family support system. But there is a transition, right? So I've been in prison for 5 years on the inside and they've been on the outside. So what they're expecting of me and what I'm expecting of them is different. I'm not the same person 5 years later after experiencing that. But we all put our best faces on, to sort of navigate through this emotional transition of returning home. And so I was extremely blessed to have their support and have a place to live. What I was looking for and what I thought I would receive would have been more assistance in terms of probation officers. I was released to transitional living. It's part of the program. So I had to stay in a halfway house and check in and officers and all of this. And so coming home was not like just getting dropped off at my front door. There was levels to being released into society. And during that, there was no assistance. You have 2 weeks to find a job, or you get written up, and that could send you back to prison. And so again, extremely blessed to have a huge family support. My ex-husband, extremely supportive, but it was not, there's no plan, right? When you get out of prison, there's no plan for us. We just need to figure it out. You sink or swim.
Wow, no, that's tough. Let me transition to Last Prisoner Project.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the board, and everybody in that organization has spoken so highly of you, which is why part of the reason why I'm so thrilled to have you on this episode. But tell me about your work with that group and why they're so meaningful to you and your role on the board.
Last Prisoner Project is so meaningful to me because they have allowed me to validate my experience, right? And so tangible things that they have got accomplished or helped me accomplish, I'll speak about those, but the emotional transition for me, of sitting in prison for 5 years, a federal justice system, you know, directly telling me that I'm a criminal, I did something wrong, I deserve to be ripped away from my daughter, and I deserve to spend 87 months in prison, does a lot, you know, mentally. And so sitting in prison and sitting in the cell, I have convinced myself that I am serving the consequences of terrible actions. I'm a bad mother, and all of this. And so when I'm introduced to Last Prisoner Project on what I thought would be a one-time occurrence of me sitting down with Steve D'Angelo and sharing my story, the first time I shared my story, it was like weight lifted. And then the second, and then the third. And so I've been able to shift my own perspective of my story, because it was unjust. It was unjust. The laws that are criminalizing marijuana are unjust, and I do not play the victim card, but I was certainly a victim of an unjust system, and so that allows me to walk more freely in my experience and my story, and it's definitely been liberating. And so they did that, right? And that was number one. And so it is because of that that I am constantly making myself available to push their mission, share the story, and really become the face of what it looks like to sit in prison for a cannabis offense. Because I meet people all the time and they see my face and they don't imagine that, they could never imagine that I received a 7-year sentence for cannabis. And so on their advisory board, I am just here to push, promote, share my story, give insight when I can, and we'll be joining their reentry team and building out what reentry should look like for people returning to society.
Yeah, well, you do a great job with them, and I've been privileged to read some of the things that you've said and watch some of the videos that you've been a part of, and I just thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm sure there's countless people out there that thank you for it, so I hope you keep it up.
Thank you.
So my day-to-day is politics,
Mhm.
and I spend most of my time snooping around in state capitals and here on Capitol Hill and inside the White House, trying to figure out what's really going on, and pressing the message that we have both as a company and of course on behalf of the cannabis industry. And I've been at this job for, well, since February of 19, as I mentioned earlier, and we've seen an incredible amount of momentum in state capitals and on Capitol Hill. So much so that I think we're actually going to see a full legalization bill, which is the MORE Act. And I know you're familiar with this, but I do believe that we are going to see this bill either this month or shortly after the election in a period known as the lame duck. Voted on, and it's going to be a very historic vote for the country if it is to pass, which I think it will. So I'm just curious if you have any insight, thoughts about what the MORE Act would mean for you personally if it were to pass, given what you've gone through and given all of the people that you know that have gone through similar circumstances.
It means a lot to me. It means more to the 40,000 people who are still sitting in prison for cannabis. And I remember sitting and watching the news in prison, and the rumors would circulate that it's about to be decriminalized, they're going to pass the law, and it never happened during my time. And so I know what it's like to sit hoping and waiting. And so to see it at least garner the attention that it has, fingers crossed that it passes, means a lot. I think the most important piece is that it removes it from the controlled substance, right? The people who are getting convicted right now of marijuana offenses are being convicted as if it is heroin, meth, or coke. And I don't think anyone in this country would agree with that method. I don't think anyone would agree that marijuana is as a threat to society as crack, heroin, meth. And so that's number one for me, what the MORE Act means, is just removing that. I thought that was ridiculous when they convicted me.
Right.
And so that is going to be, I think, the biggest piece of this. I don't see a world where it is completely legal, but I definitely see a world where it should be decriminalized.
Right. So I do agree about the decriminalization piece. I think that it's so important that we get that message, your message, to elected officials so that they understand the importance of legislation like the MORE Act. And there's many of them, whether it's generational or whether it's just because they're not familiar with the issue itself and the number of people that have been negatively impacted by it and the communities that have been negatively impacted by it. That they just don't understand the power of cannabis politically, and that they need to not be afraid to harness the issue, especially as it relates to decriminalization. So let me ask this question one more way then to you. If the pandemic ends and I get you down here to Washington, D.C., which you have an open invitation to come down and see us at any time, I will take you up to Capitol Hill. I will take you to the White House. You can sit and talk to anybody across the aisle. So whether it's President Trump or whether it's Speaker Pelosi on the opposite political spectrum, what is it that you would say to any of them?
The first thing out my mouth would be, did you know, right? Did you know there's still 40,000 people in prison right now for nonviolent cannabis offenses? I don't think many of us actually know that. And I have faith in both sides of our political spectrum that they can do what needs to be done to get this rectified, to fix this issue. Mm-hmm. And I would say to Trump specifically that I hope that at this election time, during either the end of his term or the beginning of his new term that is yet to be determined, that he uses his clemency power for those who are remaining in federal custody. We have people that are still serving life. Corvain Cooper is serving life right now for a nonviolent cannabis offense. And when you're in the federal system, the only one who can pardon you and offer you relief is the President of the United States. To Trump, I don't think that should be your job. I think you have many things that you could be doing besides, signing off on clemencies. But I truly hope that sometime during his administration that he is able to get some of those clemencies done for those remaining in office. Same thing for Pelosi, without the authority to get it done, but definitely has the authority to make it an agenda item.
Yeah,
that's what I hope for the both of them.
All right, well, good. Well, we'll get through this pandemic as we get through everything here in the U.S. We'll get you on a plane. We'll get you here to Washington, and we'll run you up there, and you can make sure to receive that message, because I think you are spot on, and it's very important that they hear it from people like you. Because again, I think a lot of the elected officials out there just don't understand what has occurred for decades related to cannabis, and it's unfortunate. And we're doing everything we can to spread the message, but it's really people like you whose stories are so impactful that are going to make the most impact. So I appreciate you sharing that. I want to end the conversation, if I could today, just by asking you just about your daughter. I saw a number of comments that you made about her, and I saw her in a video recently. Congratulations on such a sweet little girl. But give me your 2 cents about your daughter.
We are struggling during homeschooling. I will put that out there. I'm reading a lot about how kids are flourishing at home, and I'm like, is anyone thinking about their parents? But I have been truly blessed to have a daughter that survived without me. She recently watched the 13-minute documentary that GTI put together, Green Thumb. Mm-hmm. And she cried, and it was my first time seeing her react emotionally to the experience. I think her and I both have learned how to mask the emotional disconnect. And it's been 2 years, almost 2 years of us reconnecting. And I've just truly been blessed to have a child who was emotionally able to handle that. and still welcome me home with open arms, because I was extremely afraid of that, and still flourish and still be a kid and still do all the things, still be a child that I'm extremely proud of, right? And so we're horseback riding now. That's our Monday activities, and just finding ways to connect, because when you lose your child for 5 years, 2 years without any visitation, 3 years seeing her on weekends during the summer, but just, for a few hours, I became the mom that was the mom that you visit and you play games and you eat, stuff out of the vending machine, and not the mom who's like, did you do your homework? Where's your teacher? Get your assignments in. And so she had to transition and I had to transition. And I'm truly blessed as a mother, for sure.
Good. Well, I'm glad things are going well. And again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with us, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us. We look forward to sharing it with all of our viewers. And of course, on behalf of our entire team here at Under the Canopy, wish you the best, and hope that we get a chance to meet in person at some point soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you, David.
My pleasure.